Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Women at Work panel discussion. My name is Liz Hendry, and I'm the manager of the Career Centre. I'm also a careers consultant, and I'm going to be your host for this session. It's wonderful to see so many of you joining us today, and we will be recording this and we will publish the link to it. So if there's something that you want to go back to that really piqued your interest, you'll be able to watch it again. Firstly, before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the First Nations people and traditional custodians on the land in which we're meeting today. Here in Darwin, we're on beautiful Larrakia country at the end of a very wet season, but the rain has been lovely. And I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to any First Nations people with us today. So this session was inspired by International Women's Day, and it brings together 5 inspiring women who are leading and shaping today's workforce. So a very warm welcome to Marnie, Vimbai, Rima, Amber and Diana. Thank you for spending some time with us today. These amazing women will share their career journeys, some of the challenges they've faced along the way and the lessons that they've learnt. We hope that their experiences will provide useful insights and inspiration to you as you think about your own career paths and your own journeys. There will be some time for questions, so feel free to share your questions in the chat as we go. And we just ask that everybody keeps their camera off and their microphones muted just so that we can highlight the people on the screen. Okay, is everybody ready? Panelists ready? Yeah? Okay, let's get started. So my first question is going to be to all of you, but Amber, I'll get you to start. Can you share a brief overview of your career journey? Tell us a bit about yourself and what led you to where you are today.
Thank you. Hi. I'm a trained geologist, which means I'm really interested in studying Earth, life, and the environment all around us. So I specialize in really old rocks from Neoproterozoic and older. So these are rocks that are older than 1 billion years. And we're quite blessed in the Northern Territory to have so many of these Neoproterozoic rocks. And so that really is what brought me here to the Northern Territory. So I started my PhD in 2010. After I completed, I worked at Geoscience Australia, which is a federal government geoscience agency, and I was a subject matter expert in Northern Territory geology and resource systems. But over time, my career's really expanded beyond geology, beyond the resource potential in the rocks, and looking into policy and today I manage the policy and advocacy for the Minerals Council of Australia. And that really involves working with government, with CDU, with the community, talking about our industry here in the Northern Territory, looking at regulations, economic policy, workforce development, and helping people understand the wide range of careers in our sector. I really like it. I think it's sharing my love of geology with the community is one part of my job, as well as helping, shape Territorians' better economic outcomes through having industry in the NT.
Great, thanks Amber. Marnie, you're next on my hit list. Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Brilliant. Thank you, Liz, and thank you for having me as part of the panel today. I'm really excited to be here and to contribute whatever I can. So as Liz said, my name is Marnie. I'm the Associate Director of Student Support here at Charles Darwin University. So big fancy title, what does that mean? What does my work actually look like? Basically, I oversee a few different teams who look to support students to remain engaged in their studies and really reach their potential in their studies. So this involves overseeing our counselling services who support student wellbeing through a range of different experiences a student might be having. It also means looking after our Safer Communities service, which is that focus on the prevention and response to gender-based violence. We also have Access and Inclusion, which is our team that looks to support students who are living with disability or health conditions to ensure equitable access to their educational journey. We also have our advocacy services to support students navigating university policies and procedures and systems that can be so overwhelming and confusing, and our accommodation support service. So there's a few different teams that sit within there, but we all work really closely together, and it's really to ensure that students are well, have equitable access, and remain respectful and safe while they're continuing their journey at CDU. What kind of led me into this really starts before my professional journey necessarily began. I was a client and consumer of mental health services throughout my youth, and then afterwards was a carer for somebody who accessed mental health services. And that really grew my interest in understanding people, and understanding the science behind why people were the way they were, but also connecting with people. I love connecting with people, and I love understanding that kind of human connection and building a human connection. So that kind of fostered my interest in the space, and I went on to study psychology at Deakin University. After that point, I moved between so many different and varied roles, from a surf therapy program where we would use surfing as a therapy and a mindfulness practice for students, through to corrections, which was very different end of the spectrum in terms of who you were supporting. And a lot of my time I spent at Headspace, and it's within Headspace where I kind of grew those leadership skills a little bit more and moved from a more junior role into a senior role that oversaw a small team. And that directly preceded my time here at CDU, where I initially moved into our Access and Inclusion service, and just over a year ago now moved into this role. So it's very exciting how my career's kind of shifted and changed, but it is absolutely all formed who I am today as a professional.
Great, thanks, Marnie. Okay, Vimbai, tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me. So I'm Vimbai Matero. I am a humanities lecturer in the Faculty of Arts and Society. And my journey definitely hasn't been linear. It's been like a roller coaster a bit. But upon reflection, I guess that's what makes it meaningful. So my career journey started basically with survival, but it always pulled into like this bigger vision. When I was a teenager, I always wanted to be a writer, and I really liked to read as well. So, I was like, oh, I want to get a job where I can write and read, but I wasn't too sure about how to get there. But I came to Australia in 2009 in Melbourne as an international student at Deakin University as well, Marnie, alumni. And like many migrants, I initially took on a work that was practical. So I worked at an aged care center. I knew that wasn't my goal, but that's what all the other international students was doing. I still always just wished that I could write and research. And then in December 2021, I moved to Darwin with my young daughter, and I started working at Student Central as a casual customer service officer. And I was doing my postgraduate studies at the same time. After a few months, I became team leader, and then I moved to the faculty as an accreditation officer. And then I think 3 months later, I got the backfill manager role in accreditation. And that gave me, a deeper understanding of the university system, and helped me to really build that confidence that I didn't really have, and to network and get to know all these academics who were working jobs that I wanted to work in. And at the same time, I was, while I was doing the managerial role, I was doing casual marking and casual lecturing, because I was like, I want to transition fully into academia. So it was really busy, really stressful, but now I am a full-time lecturer and unit coordinator. I'm also doing my PhD with University of Queensland. And for me, I guess the journey is about persistence and backing yourself up and continuing to move forward. with whatever crazy goal or unattainable to you goal that you might have. So that's all about me.
Lovely. Thanks, Simbai. Okay, Rima, you're next.
It's been really nice to hear so far everyone else's journey. I'm very similar to the rest. It hasn't been linear. I'm born and raised in the Territory. So I did all of my schooling here, and that includes doing my bachelor's degree from CDU. I've actually done a bachelor's in information technology, which it's interesting. I've sort of ended up adjacent, but not directly correlating to my degree. So my current role is the Assistant Director of Attraction for Department of Education and Training. Specifically, it's the Teach in the Territory brand. So my role is essentially leading a small team of attraction marketers who work alongside talent acquisition partners to help find classroom teachers to staff our 153 public schools in the Northern Territory. I think it's really meaningful work and I really enjoy it, but it's not necessarily where I thought I would end up being. I finished my bachelor's degrees in around 2020, and since then I kind of went full force into the workforce. During my time at CDU, I was working part-time jobs, I was doing retail, I was kind of doing a bit of everything and anything because I wasn't 100% sure where I wanted to end up necessarily. I'm actually really grateful to say that I had this absolutely amazing female lecturer who I think ended up at government for a little while and has just moved. Her name was Barbara Wyatt, and she was a huge inspiration for me and the reason I sort of figured out where I was going in my journey. So she sort of guided me toward, well, you seem like you like IT, but you're more of a project manager. Have you thought about user experience design? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And it really opened a lot of doors for me in the sense that from there I went, okay, so IT can be more than just coding. It can be more than just doing this or that. And from that journey, I sort of then went into doing project management, working for a local education provider. From there, I went into working for a small business as a user experience designer and a marketing lead. And then I ended up in the Department of Chief Minister and Cabinet as their comm/digital and multimedia. From that area, I sort of got to experience what emergency response was like, what internal communications for the government was like, and then went one step further and ended up here with the Department of Education and Training, where I've now been for almost 12 months, leading attraction campaigns on a national and international level, just to ensure that our students in schools are getting the best quality education that they can. So it's been quite a journey. I'm still continuing on that journey. I've just started a master's degree as well from Monash University. And I'm very, very big on what can we do to help the next generation of kids get to where they want to be, especially young girls, because girls in STEM, girls in sports, girls just as a whole, it's a power force that we need to develop. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Rima. And last but certainly not least, Diana, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you. I will try to be short, but as all of you girls also have a non-linear career, and I started studying my accounting. I'm an accountant and a tax manager at KPMG. When I was 16 years old, I entered to the university. Then in my early 20s, when I was I worked in a telecommunications company and another company to import supplies, things. And then in my early 20s, I was like, I haven't, lived my life much. And I just studying and working. And I decided to move and go for a career break, learn English. And I ended up in Australia. Then it was a few years of, doing as a Rima too, anything, anywhere from cleaning to hospitality, waiters, anything. And then it took me a little bit of years to like, actually, I love Australia. This is a great place. I want to stay here. What I want to do, and decide to take back. Okay, I want to kind of keep doing with my accounting. Decide to move to Darwin, study in CDU, master in accounting, and then I got a job in KPMG which I've been working here for 7 years. I think with the years, I discovered my passions, because it's when people ask me why you do your job, it's like, every stage of my life, I will say something different. Because every stage, first it was like maybe money, maybe experience, maybe professional development, maybe, right now I am professional development, but also I'm really passionate about community and people. So my role allows me to have leadership role with all my staff. We have a team of around 20 people. Under me, I have 7 people that report directly to me, but also it gives me the opportunity to get involved with owning many things. So I'm lead of the recruitment team here in KPMG. So I liaise a lot with Tassia there and many of you guys, and help for the placements and mentor programs. But through KPMG too, we do, like, for example, in April, we're going to do a program with ABCD, which to mentor young girls. And yes, I'm part of the Colombian Association as a vice president. And yeah, with the years, I discovered that actually what it keeps me alive and give me that fire inside is to get connection with people, to kind of trying to help people, to guide them, to meaning relationships. If it's like a business owner, if it's a employer, if it's a student, it's a someone from the community. So yes, it's kind of my journey through where I am now.
That's great. Thanks, Diana. And all 5 of you were just able to demonstrate such passion for what you do, which is all about what we try to do in the Career Centre as well. So I'm totally here for it. That's great. All right, so let's move on to some challenges now. We've all faced them at different points in our careers. So I'm going to ask you what challenges you have faced as a woman in your industry and how did you overcome them? Would anyone like to start? Otherwise, I'll pick. Okay, Amber, thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think the biggest challenge that I faced was confidence. When I finished my PhD and started my job, I worked for 7 years doing the geology of the Northern Territory and beyond, building my technical capability. I've published in Science and Nature and, a few journals, which talking to other people, they're like, that's really good. You're doing the technical work, but how could I then get promoted in my career? And that's something I really, really struggled with. So I knew I was technically competent, doing a really good job, but I didn't think I had that kind of management skills to go up to the next level. Yet I saw around me a lot of other people doing that. So I had some professional coaching. That's how I've kind of succeeded, working on becoming more assertive about what I wanted to do and what I needed to do to put my hand up and accept opportunities. And so one of the coaches said to me, told me about this Hewlett-Packard study that came out in the 2000s. And it says, men sometimes apply for roles when they feel like 60% confident, while a woman wants to make sure that they're 100% confident that they can complete all the selection criteria. And definitely that's me. So I decided I'd experiment. I'd back myself a bit more. What's the worst that could happen? I would be told no. And, there's also a quite cheeky saying about, having the confidence of a mediocre white guy. And there's actually a strong lesson in that. You need to sometimes just put your hand up, trust that you can grow and stretch into that role if someone backs you. So I started doing that. And since taking that initiative, my career really progressed much, much faster. And in the next 5 years, I've taken a few strategic, calculated leaps, a few failures along the way, but it's really opened up great opportunities. And my salary's doubled. I'm in a quite senior position here, so I think back yourself, get a coach, whatever you need, you can do it.
Great advice. Thanks, Amber.
I
Marnie?
completely agree with that, Amber. And something that I was reflecting on when looking at this question was around that same, applying for jobs that you're arguably overqualified for. And this happened a lot for me when I initially left university. I felt that I had engaged in a lot of opportunities. I'd really built my skills. I had achieved well at university, and I was applying for these roles that were quite entry level and not hearing anything back. And this happened over, months and months and months, and it really impacted my confidence. And I decided one day I was just sick to death of it, and applied on Seek to a management position of an entire headspace center in my first year out of university. And of course, I didn't get that role, but they did contact me. And that was the first time that I started working at Headspace. They contacted me to say, this role doesn't seem suited to your expertise. However, we do have this other position that we would love to interview you for. So I think that's another way that it can really show if you're willing to throw your hat in the ring and be really persistent and maybe take those leaps, that even if you don't get that role, you may be offered, another role within the organization. They may see that you're keen and available and keep your name on hand, which I think is a really positive outcome of throwing your name out there. That was one part of my reflection. Something else was within the actual role. I found that sometimes I'd be talked down to, maybe not taken as seriously as my male counterparts who would raise similar points. I would You would kind of sense these intimidation tactics at play, not taken as seriously in a room, not given as much space in a room. And for me, it was all about persistence and continuing to show up. Vimbai spoke to this earlier, but it was just about showing up again and again and building your knowledge behind that. So you had that kind of strong knowledge and information base behind you, and then just showing up each time and keeping on presenting. And soon enough, it does land, and people do register what's happening. And I think it's the persistence that showed me, it actually taught me a lot about my character and what I was capable of. But there was also an element of staying open to being curious and learning, and trying not to allow my ego to get in the way when maybe someone does have a much better idea than me, and I can actually really learn from them over here. So it's the balance of persistence and remaining strong as a woman in those spaces, while also acknowledging that we're learning and we're ever growing, and being really curious about everyone else's expertise and their knowledge base, and being willing to take that on board. So it's the ego and confidence balance that can be a really hard one to strike, I think, particularly as a woman.
Great, Marnie. Rima, you're nodding a lot. Have you had similar challenges?
I've had many similar challenges, and I feel as though I relate to quite a lot of it. To add even more layers onto it, I feel as though, for me personally, the degree that I did was a very male-dominated field. And then a lot of when I was in uni, it was primarily boys and or men that you were with. When I came out of the workforce, it was very similar in not just one, but quite a few of the different roles that I was in, regardless of what side of information technology I ended up in. It was primarily men that I was either managing or working alongside. And there's always the good and the bad. I completely agree. It's sometimes you need to put yourself out there and be super persistent. And then other times you do need to go, I'm not the subject matter expert here. Let me take a step back, listen to what's happening and go from there. I've also had the extra layer, and I'm sure many of you have had it as well, of some will assume something by the way that you look on their very first interaction with you, whether it's assuming your level of education, your level of understanding, the accent that's going to come out of your mouth. There's always an assumption. And oftentimes, for me personally, the assumption is she's young, she's a person of color, and she's female. So therefore, your role is to sit and take notes, not necessarily to lead. And it is quite difficult, especially when you're a young woman in the workforce that is knowledgeable, that is the subject matter expert, to get to a point where, and one of my, actually specifically Barbara White was the one who helped me get to, I guess, this saying, but it was when you say it enough times that the person comes back to you and says it like it's their own idea, you know that you've won. And so in the roles that I've had, at least, a lot of the time it's pitching a campaign or a project to fix a problem that is presented. And oftentimes it's, well, that's not the right way. Well, that's not the right way. And eventually the client or the stakeholder comes back to me to go, I've had this brilliant idea. How about we do this? And you're like, this is the same thing I've pitched you for the last 6 months. I love it. You've had an amazing idea because we've got the plan in place. We're ready to implement it. And as long as it's a smooth process that gets the end result, there are many different ways to get there, but oftentimes it is sort of having to have that patience, have that resilience to be able to come to the conclusion that needs to eventually be brought forward. I've also had the fun challenges of not necessarily knowing enough about certain areas. Being in the roles that I have been, oftentimes, if you're a communications person, especially in a government role, you get given a project at quite last minute and you're brought in as the tail end of a project. So regardless of who the subject matter expert is, you need to then translate that information from what the subject matter expert has provided to what someone will be able to understand on a public level, which is normally, I want to say, maybe 7th or 8th grade English. And oftentimes you're like, I don't understand what this means. I do not have the expertise here. How do I not only communicate it, but satisfy everyone else involved? And it can be a challenge when you're dealing with someone who is so knowledgeable and who is so much more advanced in their career, to communicate what you want to communicate out to the public in a manner that will give the desired result, I guess is the best way to put it. So it's a lot of learning, it's a lot of listening, but it's also a lot of, actually, this might be a better method forward, and putting that forward to say, I know you're the subject matter expert in this particular area. However, you're now in my area. I'm the subject matter expert here. Let me help you so that we can work together to achieve what we need to achieve.
Great. Thanks, Rima. Okay, we might just move on to the next question now. This is talking about imposter syndrome. Have you ever experienced self-doubt or imposter syndrome, and how did you manage it? And I think that's something that we all have, that little person deep inside us that says, what are you doing? How do you think you're going to get through this? Vimbai, have you had any experience with that?
Oh, yeah, I still do. I think for the majority of my life, I've been very underestimated and overlooked. And I think when I tell people that, they're like, no, we all think you're great. I'm like, you think I'm great now? But a lot of the time I was expected to be in the background and do work that other people would take credit for. And, you know, those voices still carry on. So I still experience self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And I think, you know, in my line of work, so my research is based on gender-based violence, which is very divisive for a lot of people. And I do have a lot of naysayers as well. And I think, you know, a lot of people will assume that once you reach a certain point in your career, that feeling of being an imposter or a fraud disappears. But many of us, it doesn't. It carries on and it shapes us. And when I'm trying to explain certain aspects of gender and violence and that, I started to feel like, oh, no one is going to listen to me, or who am I to be in this room? Who am I to ask this question? Who am I to be in this panel today? You know, but I've learned that, you know, self-doubt is not always a sign that you're in the wrong place. Sometimes it's a sign that you're just stretching a bigger version of yourself. And what helps me to manage that is the community that I've managed to build here at CDU. So, you know, even though I may have faced people who want me in the background, I've met a lot of people who champion for me. So when I don't have that in me to be my own cheerleader, I lean on my trusted colleagues and friends, especially those who've seen my journey from Student Central and who I've worked with, and I let myself be vulnerable when I need to be. And I let those people remind me of who I am. And they remind me of the evidence, the work I've done, the progress I've made, and that I didn't arrive here by accident. So sometimes it's not just an internal thing. Sometimes you have to say, Marnie, I'm not feeling okay. I feel like a loser. I feel like this. And then they'll be like, no, but you're amazing. You're great. Be on this panel, things like that, you know? So imposter syndrome, I hope one day could disappear, but it carries on, and you just, for me, I lean on those who see me with a different lens.
Thanks, Vimbai. Diana, do you have anything you'd like to
Yes,
add?
I agree what just been by say. Actually, I think we in some moment of our lives we all have doubts ourselves. In my actually in my situation, my accent has been something that I always kind of doubt of myself because as all of you say, you know, perceptions, how people perceive you, if you have an accent, if you have a color, if you where you are, how you dress, all of the stuff. Being a Latin, people doesn't it seems like sometimes they doesn't take you seriously. But this is also my perception, and I also put in a thing in me, and I'm like, okay, this is not about, you know, how I look like. This is more, I'm going to focus more in what I can bring to the table. I need to, so it was a work, personal work that I do through coaching too, because I have to ask for help. And it's when you realize that you need help and to work on that is when you start kind of learning how to manage and become better on that. And even that if you have the voice then saying like, oh, no, maybe no, but you still manage to say, you know what, I can do it because I do it once because of this. So it's a kind of shifting the mindset. It's kind of practicing yourself, talking to yourself, and practicing, preparing, all of that stuff. But something that I love from what I said is the support networking that you have. You know, surround with people that support you, that are positive, that, you know, can mentor you. I've been lucky to have a really great colleagues here, mentors, managers that have helped me through here in KPID, that is my professional career in Australia. But yes, I feel like that networking that you get is very important because talking about what you feel, it helps you a lot. It's you recognize, but also is like a, you know, work that you do with yourself and saying like, yeah, this is happening. So now that I recognize this, maybe we need to work in this, you know, all of that. So yes, I think it is having a network that supports you, work on yourself, if you need a coach, if you need a mentor, focusing what you can bring to the table, the value that you do, and yes, try to kind of work on that every day, and step by step, you get it better and to manage those little voices that you can have.
I love that step by step. That's a really nice approach. Anybody else want to add anything to this question? Otherwise, we might move on.
The only thing I was going to add quickly, Liz, I always
Yeah,
have something to add,
yeah.
is just a really practical lesson that I learned when I was experiencing a lot of self-doubt and a lot of that imposter syndrome was um, kind of journaling or reflecting really specifically in your work on what you're proud of, and kind of having that pride element to it can be really essential. So it's that internal validation to yourself, because it's very easy at the end of a work day, or at the end of a study day, or at the end of whatever day you may have, to reflect and go, I should have done that better. I was too quiet then. I didn't articulate myself well in that instance. I didn't do this well enough. We're always picking at ourselves and our flaws. It's important to bring in pride. And pride is a really interesting one because it's something usually based on action. So it's something quite tangible that you can say, I am proud that I said this, or that I didn't know that thing, so I looked it up and I learned more about it, or that I shared this with a colleague and was able to get that connection, or, you know, I spoke with my supervisor about it, whatever it may be. But finding something that you're really proud of that you've done within that day, within that week, can be a really great way to slowly build that confidence in yourself. And then soon enough, you've got a whole bank of these achievements, And they may be very, 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 very small, but you've got a whole bank of achievements of ways that you've gotten through and that you've added value and kind of evidence to the fact that you're not an imposter and that you really bring value to this work that you're doing.
That's a great idea. So not only thinking about 3 things you might be grateful for, I'm going to start thinking about 3 things that I am proud of every day. So that's really cool. Anyone else, or shall we move on?
Yeah, can I just say
Amber? Yeah,
something?
please do.
Sorry if I've just talked over somebody else.
No.
But I thought that's a really good thing, and I'm going to start thinking about what I'm proud of too. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's really important to make the point that everybody experiences imposter syndrome, and I think everyone will continue to. So I not really work related, but I was listening to an interview with Lady Gaga, and she was saying that she still gets anxiety and is sick, and she's such an amazing singer. And from a science kind of lens, Albert Einstein thought that he wasn't good enough, and we all know about how much of an amazing physicist he is. So instead of saying, it's never going to go away, acknowledging that yes, imposter syndrome is here, and we need to try to manage it the best we can, either with good mentors, self-reflection, having people that have our back, that'll help make that. It won't make it go away, but it's going to kind of quieten that noise down a little bit further, so that you can try your best to get.
Thanks, Amber. Rima, do you want to round that question out?
The only thing I had to add, I loved what Marnie had mentioned about adding your small wins, but also if anyone tells you you've done a great job or thank you so much for helping me, or even those little things which you don't really realize, I feel like when it becomes your business as usual for your job, you don't realize how much you actually do in a day. So all of those wins where you might get an email, you might get someone just walking up to you, or you might even get someone in the break room that comes up to you and says, thanks for that chat yesterday. I needed that. Those types of things, record them as well. I get imposter syndrome a lot at my current job because it's one of my first times managing a team. And I often think, oh, I can't manage. These people are so much more experienced than me. They're this, they're that, all positive things, of course. But even knowing that you can, like the role that you do does impact all the different touch points in your day, whether that's talking to someone from your team, from a different team, a stakeholder, the way you talk to yourself throughout the day. So not only recording, I did this and I'm proud of myself for this, but also, you know what, that person said that they enjoyed our chat during lunchtime, even if it was a non-work related chat, that's a win. Any little thing that you do that can sort of build you up and say, you've made your place here because you feel like you've actually made your place here. It's always good to note down, even if it's just an email that said, thank you so much.
Great, that's fantastic. Lots of little good snippets of information there. Let's move on to our very last question. And it's a bit broad, but what advice would you give students entering the workforce and aspiring for success in their own careers? So think back to your study days. What is it that you wish someone had told you that you know now? Who wants to start? Marnie.
I might be able to start.
Oh, no, you take it, Rima. Take it away.
Sorry, Marnie. I found that when I was finishing up my degree and I was doing my 101 things, I had a very similar experience to one of our panel members in the sense, I think it was you actually, Marnie, where you felt like you were applying for entry-level jobs, but you weren't really getting anything back. You applied for something more senior and you found your place. Something that I learned was I did a lot of jobs that were not necessarily connected, but still around the same vein. Like I was working retail, I was working on commercial sets, I was doing this, I was doing that. I realized that I was going, oh, I'm so sporadic, I'm doing bursts. No, I'm actually networking, I'm connecting. And that's one of the biggest things I tell CDU students during the mentoring program. And also when I joined my government mentoring program in which I was a mentee versus a mentor, the more that you know also isn't just what you know isn't just information, it should also be people. Knowing who the right person to go to ask certain questions is a huge skill, and it's a skill that's valued in every organization you want to be in. If you know that this person has always gets the best coffee in town, that's the person that you want to go ask to say, hey, what's your coffee recommendation? Where should I go? I think it's really important for anyone that's not only entering the workforce, but existing in the workforce to make connections with people. And it doesn't have to be this person is now my best friend, but definitely take an interest and figure out what levels you can sort of get to with them, that you not only actually care about the conversation, but you're contributing back to the conversation. Because it's very different when you're going to ask someone and you just keep asking them questions versus when you're genuinely interested in what they have to say. And people can tell. So it's great to go to these networking events and say, hey, this is my elevator pitch, but take back what you actually need from it in the sense of what was their elevator pitch? How can I connect with them on this particular topic that they're interested in, I'm interested in? And that honestly might just be, that's a really interesting coffee order. Because I feel like you'll learn something from every person working with, and especially in the top end and especially in the Northern Territory, it's really who you know and what you can learn from knowing them.
That's great. Thank you. Vimbai, what piece of advice would you give a student?
Well, just to piggyback off what Rima said, I'd say that success doesn't always look glamorous at the start. You know, sometimes it looks like taking the role that gets your foot through the door. Sometimes it's studying while working or doing extra things on the side because you want to move closer to where you want to be. The important thing, I guess, is just to have that intention. But my biggest advice is that you shouldn't let other people's fear or negativity or limitations define what's possible for you. There's always going to be people who will doubt you, who will misunderstand your ambition, or try to put you in a box that feels comfortable for them. But the worst thing that you can ever do is to give up on yourself and let other people write your story. So just block out the noise. One thing that I do for myself, and it's kind of quirky, but whenever I shop online, I always click on the gift option because you could write a little note, and I write a note for myself. And I write things like, way to go, girl, or things that I've been hoping to get so that by the time the parcel arrives, because we live in Darwin, so it'll take 2 weeks, that thing would have occurred. Or I'll be like, oh, you're looking fit, sis. You know, sometimes it can be just jokey, and it always makes me feel good, and I always end it with, love you, then bye. So yeah, that's just my advice.
What a great idea. I love that. Diana, what's the piece of advice you'd give a CDU student?
Before giving an advice, I will just wish everyone that they find something that they enjoy and have passion about it. And I think a way of doing that is to try things. And sometimes we think that we need to be 100%, ready to take the opportunity, but we don't need it. We have to have kind of some comfort, some experience, some knowledge, but we don't have to tick all the boxes and have that 100% ready, because otherwise we're never going to jump and take the opportunity. So I think in order to find what you are passionate about it and enjoy what you do, because you really do, because work is not always the great place, and not always you have wins. You always have losses. You can lose a client. You can have problems with a colleague. There's so many things. But if you have passion for what you do, you keep there and overcome all of that. So I think trying, and if there is an opportunity, don't think that because you are not 100% ready, you cannot take it. So it's just be open and curiosity, learning, all of that.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Diana. Amber. Amber, I think we might have lost your sound. No. Sorry. While you work on that, Marnie, what piece of advice would you give to students?
Thanks, Liz. I think every woman on here today has recapped really wonderfully everything I would like to add. I think it's about all of the things, taking the opportunities, even when you feel like it is a stretch. You can really prove so much to yourself about what you're capable of. really being persistent and keeping on showing up and keeping on being the person that you are and that you can be, and having a lot of faith that, you deserve to be the person that you dream of being, and you deserve to be in that role that you dream of having. So keep pursuing that and just keep showing up as best you can. Sometimes there's going to be rough days where you feel like no one's listened, or you've been dismissed, or that you've missed out on an opportunity that you really felt like you deserved. But if you are persistent and you keep showing up, and that you are taking the opportunities and sometimes taking those leaps, you're staying open and curious, like Diana was saying, you're continuing to grow your skills, you will get the opportunities. They will come. They may come in very different forms to what you originally intended when you first left university, but they will certainly come, and people will really recognize what you're doing and how you're showing up.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Marnie. Amber, do we have any sound from you?
Is this working?
Hooray, yes.
Woohoo. Awesome. Sorry, everybody. Don't know what happened. Uh, my advice was to have a go, stay curious. I think while you're a student, you're really fortunate that you have the time to take vacation work, look for internships, paid or unpaid. Paid is obviously much better, as well as grad programs, because they really help you discover what you enjoy. And I think it's really important too what you don't enjoy, because that's equally as important. If something's not the right fit for you, you could recognize that, pivot, and move on. I think we've all shared that your career is never linear, or if it is, it's quite rare. But while you can use that experience to build your skills, build your experiences and relationships, because as people have said, that's what matters most. And I think too, if I can quickly, I know we're about to run out of time, but I think the importance of those skills you might learn in university that can be applied to other things. So looking at what skills you can bring to the table and how you can apply them in a range of different settings and roles. So there's a whole range of different careers out there. I thought I'd be a geologist looking at rocks forever, but who knew that I'd be in policy space? But my skills that I need in terms of researching and communication, they're just as important in whichever role that I'm in.
Great. Thanks, Amber. Well, that does bring us to the end of our session today. And you ladies have been so wonderful and generous with your time and your thoughts and your words of wisdom. I have absolutely loved it, and I'm sure our audience has as well. So I've just had a quick check, and there's no questions because you answered them so well that nobody needed anything else from you. So that's fantastic. So we'll round off today with a very big thank you. You guys are absolutely awesome, and you are rocking the world of work. And if we ever have panels again, I hope you'll stick your hands up to be on another panel. Thank you very much. Thank you to our listeners who joined us today. This has been recorded, so we will let everybody know where they can watch it, and go back to it every time you need a little confidence boost. These are the women to give it to you. So thank you very much. Thanks for today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Liz.
Thanks, Liz. Bye, ladies.